Good morning, everybody. I'm so glad you are back. So I'm Heatherina, and I'm here to talk about living with two kids that killed or potentially could kill. I'm glad everybody liked the Q&A yesterday. I said that I would do it, and so I needed to get it done. Alrighty, so today is a day that I have not been looking forward to, and it is talking about some of the more in-depth things that had happened while my two stepkids lived with me. If you have not been following my story, please know that the two kids I'm talking about are in fact my stepkids, not my biological kids, and just go watch the other videos. It explains so much. Let's not get that in my eye right this morning. So trying to think where we left off yesterday. We were living in this house. Things started to escalate more. It seemed a lot of stuff with Biomom was going on. So during this time, she is not keeping a job for very long. Her life seems to be spiraling out of control. When her life spirals out of control, we would see that the kids, when they go on visits, things weren't very pleasant. So when we moved over from the old house, we had four birds and two dogs. My one dog was a Chihuahua that I have had since before my twins were even born. So I had had him quite some time. And he was getting old. He's dead now, guys. He passed away, not because of my stepkids, but he did pass away. And we had Chico. You guys remember Chico, my German Shepherd. So a lot of people are having a cow because of the dog living outside. He lived outside because he chose to live outside. But we had things, pretty much for the most part, Chico slept outside. We made sure that my two stepkids didn't have anything to do with my dog, other than when we were outside or whatever. When we lived, one of the pieces that I had, I don't know if I had mentioned it or not, but when we had lived at the first place we moved to, from after getting them, we had gotten ducks and chickens for the kids, and nothing had ever happened to those ducks and chickens. But when we moved into town, we could not, because we lived in the country then, when we moved into town, we could not have those ducks and chickens. So those ducks and chickens ended up going to my husband's parents' house. Well, anyways, my kids really wanted ducks and chickens. I wanted the ducks, the kids wanted chickens. It's just a really easy farm animal for kids. My husband grew up on a farm. Obviously, that's where his parents live. He always had different farm animals and things. I'm from the city, so I did not. But it was around Easter, and it seems to be the only time that they sell chickens and ducks around here for whatever reason. Maybe that's just their hatching time. I don't know. Okay, there's the bumping again. I'm so sorry, guys. I know that rattles when I get close. Anyways, so we decided to get the kids all chickens, and I got two ducks. And, God, my eyebrows are just falling out. Something fun, and it's cute because the co-op here, they dye with food coloring. They dye the chickens fluff different Easter colors. I guess people get chickens and stuff for their kids for Easter, not like to keep. I don't know. But we got each kid a chicken, and I got two ducks, and they were still really little, which meant they needed to stay inside or somewhere warm. I didn't have a heated chicken coop, so we kept them in the house in a box. where we could keep them warm. They had a heat lamp and things, and they were right here outside my bedroom. And we would let them out. We would take them out during the day in the kitchen, and we would play with them. With animals, you don't want them to be afraid of your hand. You know, if you need to pick them up or anything, you need to be able to do that. So, you know, you start playing with them. This is stuff my husband told me, like, y'all, I have no clue. But we would pick them up and play with them. And I had it to where, like, my little ducks, I could just call them and they would come running. They were so cute. And we had them in the house for quite some time, about a month. And they were getting big enough where it was time for them to go outside. You know, it was getting warmer outside, and it's just time for their little birdie selves to go outside. And so I had a smaller chicken coop. Yes, I'm drinking Pepsi. But I had a smaller chicken coop. It's like the small ones that you can just like buy at the store. You know, I wanted something small to transition them into, and that is what I found. I think somebody told me that it was like a rabbit hutch, but I don't know. So I put it out on my back porch, on, you know, where the sliding glass door is in the back room. I put it out there, and we were getting like food bowls and things ready for the birds, and we stuck the birds outside. And we waited we had a heat lamp and things in there outside still, but we waited until the evening to put them out there and got their container that when they were in the house, we got it all cleaned up. And went to bed, and my kids were very excited to see their little ducky friends and chicken friends the next day. And they went running outside, you know, because I told them, like, every morning you gotta get up and you're gonna have to feed and water the, you know, the chickens and the ducks. And then in the evening on night chores, because my kids do chores, they just do animals in the morning, and then in the evenings they do around 3 they do like their main chores and stuff. So I'm like, you got to make sure that you feed them, you know, twice a day, and love and take care of them. Just make sure they have water, make sure they have food, you know, parenting things. So in the morning they were very excited to see their little friends, and they went tearing ass out the back. You know, they got up, got dressed, and went tearing ass out the back door. And the chickens and the ducks were not in the coop. And it's interesting because the coop, you know, had a door, and it had 2 latches, one on the top, one on the bottom. And they were not in there. And my kids come in, of course, and they're like, Mom, there's no chickens or ducks in the cage. Like, where are they? Did you bring them in? Like, they're looking to see if I brought them in. And I had not brought them in. So I'm like, hold on, let me get some clothes on. Thinking that because this like chicken coop, it has like the bottom floor, and then it has like this little drawbridge that walks up to a level, and another drawbridge that goes up into a part that you can't particularly see them. So I'm thinking they're just up in that top part. So I get my sweatshirt and my mucks on, and I go outside, and I go looking. I climb halfway into this thing. I don't hear noise. I don't hear nothing. You know, like, I thought that was very weird. Climb inside, no ducks, no chickens. The door is shut and the door is latched. And I'm just like, very confused. So I look for holes and things, and I'm just like, I don't understand. I don't understand where these dang animals went. So I go to walk the yard, and out in the yard, me and my kids all go to walk the yard. I'm like, everybody, you go this way, you go this way, you know, I'll go this way type thing. And we go outside, and in the yard is laying all of the chickens and ducks strategically around the yard with sticks in their hearts. I am instantly mortified, to say the least, because like in nature that just doesn't happen. I turn around to tell my kids, when I see it, I tell my kid, turn around and tell my kids to go like back in the house, go back in the house. And my stepson was standing on the porch. He wasn't even attempting to help us look for the birds, probably because he knew where they were at. But he's standing up on the porch by the door with this big old shit-eating grin on his face. And you know, I was just mortified that he had even that look on his face, because my kids had already seen what I was trying to shield them from. They had already seen it and already were crying hysterically because their friends were gone. And here is my stepson with a shit-eating grin on his face. And so I'm like, that's not funny. That's not funny at all. Like, why are you laughing about that? That's weird. Like, what are you doing? And he's like, I don't understand why you guys are crying over a bunch of stupid ducks and chickens. He's like, that's just stupid to me. So I couldn't prove that he killed the ducks and the chickens, but I knew. Like, I didn't know, but I suspected. That's the better word. I suspected that he might have had something to do with it. When we discussed it, because obviously me and Dad discussed it with him later on. Excuse me, guys. He denied it, and he was like, why would I do that? That's stupid. Like, why would I do that? And I'm like, how come you're not crying over your animal being, you know, dead? Like, he was dead. Like, he had a stick through his heart. Like, how does that not bother you? And he's like, because it's really just not a big deal. It's just a farm animal. Like, nobody cares about a farm animal. And I'm like, well, that's just not true, because I'm devastated that my animal, my ducks, I had 2 ducks, is dead. And the fact that you don't give 2 hoots about it upsets me even worse. And he was just like very nonchalant, oh well. Now, so I'm going to tell you a future story that's not in the best lineup of things that happened. I'm sure a lot of my stuff's not in the best lineup because, you know, who can remember things in order? But, oh, crap everywhere. But I wanted to tell you a future story in that as well that kind of ties to the story. So later on, I used to have in the back room, so remember we made bedrooms for the kids back there, but the room was so big we were still able to leave hold on. We were still able to leave like a family room area, which I turned into my craft room. You know, I used to do a lot of crafts and stuff, make all my kids' hair bows and stuff for them, and you know, all of that fun stuff for my kids. And also back there in the family room was my 3 bird cages. They were back there as well. And because they're so big, there was nowhere else to put them. And hold on one second. And I can't exactly remember how far apart the 2 instances were. Just because my life started becoming nothing but a big, ginormous blur with all the stuff going on. And constantly being hyper vigilant over like what is always going on in my house and having to watch everybody. I started becoming really numb. And having a hard time with dates. Yes, we kept journals on everything, but I have put those journals away. And even being able to flip through them to find that, I journaled every single day. So, you know, I could probably read that for the most part. I mean, there's times that I didn't journal, but, you know, for the most part, there were some journals and stuff. Well, anyways, I went to go to my back room, to my craft room, and I would always walk in. And so at the time we had a double macaw cage, and I don't know if you guys even know what a macaw cage looks like. They are ginormous. They're about as big as my bed, a king size bed. And they have a divider that goes in the middle of it that you can make it into a cage for 2 macaws, or you can just leave that out. So usually a lot of times those kind of cages are used for like when you're breeding. I happen to just use it for my 2 macaws, and a lot of times the male bird, I had my husband's bird, which was a very violent bird, and then my bird, who was a very sweet bird, but they weren't violent to each other. So like nature's a whole different than like human bird contact. But when my bird would be sick and tired of dealing with my husband's bird, I would put that divider in, usually at night, almost every night. I would separate them, put the divider in. And at this time, the divider was in the cage. And I had them separated. And I would go back to the back room. And I would always be like, I still do this with the birds that I do have still. I'd be like, hi, what you doing, you know? Because they talk. They say all sorts of cool things. And my bird would say mama, mama, you know. Probably because she heard my kids say it all the time. But when I went back this time and I said that, I didn't get any response. And I usually would do it like right before I would walk into the door. I'd be like, hey, like as I was walking in. And I noticed when I walked into the room, there was blood on the floor. Like splattered blood though. Not like pooled blood. And I'm like, what the fuck? You know, and I'm walking and I'm looking, and I mean, just imagine how you would walk into a scene like that. So I'm walking and I'm looking and I'm trying to figure out like, where the hell is this coming from? You know? And I had realized fairly quickly that the blood was around the birds' cages. Now, let me tell you, birds, because I've rescued a lot of birds and most of them were from very, very abusive homes, you will see birds that pluck their own feathers out and they will bleed from it. I had a bird named Tequila that I had gotten from a motorcycle shop. And this bird was in a parakeet cage. A big macaw in this little tiny parakeet cage. And she was very violent. And she would pull her own feathers out. And so taking her to the vet and stuff, when I first got her, they put her on fluoxetine to help with her severe anxiety. Anxiety of people. She obviously had been abused by people too, other than being shoved in a teeny tiny cage. But birds can do that. So I'm looking around and there's blood all the way around almost the entire cage. You know, all of it but the one side, the one square side, had blood. And the birds were together. And I was like, what the fuck, you know? Where is this blood? And I'm looking, and so you got to remember that my husband's bird was very aggressive and did not like humans. Now Buster, his name was Buster. Buster liked my husband, but did not like anybody else. And he would even sometimes bite my husband. You know, he bit him so hard one time. He like hit his watch so hard with his beak, he broke the end of his beak off. I mean, it grew back because that's what they do, but that's just how much force Buster bit me one time so hard he tore half of the skin of my thumb off. And I wasn't barely near him. He like reached out and grabbed me when he was on a Java tree. So I'm checking my baby bird out first, because it's the one I can touch, pick up, and look at. And I'm looking for blood, and I noticed on the underside of my baby bird, there was dried up blood. So now I know that the blood has clotted, meaning that the bird's super high heart rate and adrenaline isn't pushing more blood out to kill my bird. So the bird clotted on its own because it was dried and there was no blood coming out. On Buster's foot that I could see, there was, on the bottom of his foot and on his arm, he had gashes too, and it was also clotted up. So nobody is continuing to bleed at this moment. Thank God. Because if Buster was bleeding like that, being able to get Buster out of that cage to take care of him would mean I would have to towel him. And you can look up how to towel a bird. It's not as dramatic as it sounds. But I did not really want to get bit by this bird on this giving day. So now I am like, where did this blood come from? I mean, not where did it come from, but like how? You know, I start looking at their beaks really quick. There's no blood on their beaks. The entire center thing. Okay, so the divider is this metal door. And it has two handles and you have to pull them at the same time to get it out. Okay, this door was completely taken out and leaned against the wall. And that would mean one of two things. I didn't put the door in at all, or somebody took the door out, correct? Like, there's only two things there. So my first instinct, well, I cleaned the blood up first just because I didn't want none of the kids walking in it and dragging it through the house. And the dramatics of kids and blood and, you know, their kids. So I cleaned that up really quick and then I go to find my phone. Because now I'm like, I'm more so wanting to look to see if I forgot to put the door in. And these two birds fought, which I had never seen them fight before. I would separate them because Buster would be on his aggressive side of things and he would pluck feathers out of baby bird, my bird, and she just didn't want him around all the time, but they would never like fight to the death ever. So that was like, what the hell? So I go and get my phone, and then anybody who has cameras knows how long it takes for the damn playback to like literally go through every inch when you don't know exactly what time you need to go to. So I'm sitting there and I'm going through the playback. I see where I put the door in, because I scrolled all the way back to the beginning of the night, because that was the whole reason that I wanted to see the video. So when I realized that I put the door in and the door is now out, now I want to know who took it out. So I continue to watch the video and I see my stepson get into the cage. Well, I see him walk around the cage. I see him wandering around. Then I see him open up the bird's cage. And of course, anytime you open a... Stupid camera. So anytime you open a bird's cage, they almost automatically, unless they're scared of people, almost always just come out. Which they did. So they came out of the cage, and then he got into the cage. So my first thought was, is he getting into the cage to eat the bird's food? But then that wouldn't even make sense, because you can just open the door on the outside and the food door opens. So I'm just like, what is he doing? You know, why would he get in there? Like, why would he get into the cage? And as a lot of you have seen in the video that I posted, he climbed inside the cage, and all of a sudden you see this really long stick, decent sized stick, with a sharp point on it. And you see him proceed. The birds are on the top of the cage, because birds always go to the highest point, if you didn't know. They go to the top of the cage, and he starts stabbing them inside the cage. And that is how my birds, you know, and if you look at that video and you look at his facial expressions, he's very happy and content doing that. And it's like, one would want to know why you thought that that was okay. So, of course, I took the video to the counselor, because as we all know already, cops aren't going to do shit. They just don't, for whatever reason. So I take it to his counselor. I let her watch it, and then she wants to discuss it with him. I'm mad. I'm not gonna lie. I am pretty pissed off at this kid at this point. You know, there was no reason, no excuse why you need to just constantly be a complete heathen all the time. Like, you know, it's just, there's no reason to get up in the middle of the night to harm somebody or something. You know, so I was very upset, because now my birds have been through something with these kids. And, you know, I didn't want to talk to him about it until we talked to the counselor. Because everything, I kept feeling like everything was just always a bullshit lie. And I wanted these counselors to be able to get to the root of things without any influence or anything on these kids. Like, they needed to be able to ask the questions and figure out what is going on with these kids. So I took it to the counselor. Oh, I got something in my eye. And I showed her the video first. It just broke. I showed her the video, and she was just like, okay, this is a little more serious. That, you know, this is serious. You know, that's just kind of what she said. Like, I'm going to talk to him, see what's going on, because we need answers. So she talks to him. Then I go in after, and she's like, well, he said he just, you know, was bored, and, you know, he just got in there because he was worried that the birds were going to hurt him. And she has this look on her face like she, you know, like she's telling me this is a bullshit. You know, like she's looking at me like, I don't believe this for 1 second. I'm just telling you what he said. And so I'm like, so you in the middle of the night are scared that my birds that are inside their cage locked in is going to hurt you. Yes, I was just, you know, so scared. So I brought the stick for protection, and I'm like, remember, I'm still mad, okay? And I'm literally like, bullshit. That is bullshit if I've ever heard bullshit. You were supposed to be in your bed sleeping. Those birds, what did you think they were going to do? Like, open your door and come in there? Like, get out of their cage? Because macaws' cages, well, depending on what cage you get, but most of them have kind of like a locking feature. They go all the way around. There's some that go over and down. They have a little hook. It's just not as easy. There is a lot of birds that can get out of cages. That's no lie. But these cages were like the ones that went all the way around. It was a metal circle. So I'm over here just like, you're fucking full of shit. So she's like, we need to discuss your need to hurt these animals and why. And so at that moment, I was like, you know what? We need to discuss actually something else as well. So, blah, 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 you know, X amount of time ago, our ducks and chickens had sticks through their hearts. I knew it was him, but I couldn't prove it was him, you know, without him saying. But now that this has went on, I'm pretty sure that we can guess that it was him. And so she's like, okay, so now we have ducks and chickens dead. And we have video of you stabbing these birds. Do you want to say anything for yourself? And he was like, I just don't see why people care so much about these stupid birds. You know, they're just birds. It's just not that big of a deal. So pretty much admitted to stabbing my macaws and killing the animals. So she started working on talking to him about killing animals and the fact of just how serious that matter is. And, you know, well, she's like, did you turn this in? And I said, I haven't, because every time I turn something in, they don't do anything. And she's like, okay, well, I'm going to note this down and I'm going to have a talk with CPS and stuff about this. Because coming from a doctor, things, you know, get listened to a lot more than when they come from parents for some reason. Like, it's just like the world doesn't want to help us, you know? And it's like he hit a certain age. So at this point, I think he is 12. And it just seems like when both of them hit 12 is when like demons possess them. And they just started doing such violent acts. So it wasn't long after the event with the birds that he started getting physically violent with me. To the point that, so I want to tell you guys about my safety people. So I had several people, I don't know how else to tell, you know, like say it, but they just would come to my rescue. So when I would have enough, because we all get to a point that we have enough, then I had people that I could call on that would come and take over until I could cool myself off. And I had several. I had 2 across the street. I had my stepkids' aunt. At this time, I had his biological aunt, his mom's sister. So during this time that I'm talking about, he got really violent with me. And I had called the cops, and the cops had came. And this is what they do. This is what they do when the cops come. So they come, they're like, where's he at? And I'm like, in his room. So they go in his room to talk to him. And in this particular time, the cop comes moseying back out with my stepson. And he is like, so, such and such wants to go to the army and be a cop when he grows up. And I'm like, oh yeah? It's the first I've ever heard of that. He's like, yeah, we started talking and he wants to be a cop when he grows up. And I was like, I guess in my head I'm thinking, yeah, I don't give a shit, because like what's happening with this situation? Like, you're not here to talk to him about being a cop or going to the army or any of this crap, you know? Like, what are you going to do about the situation that he is tearing up my house and screaming vulgar things, and I mean literally kicking holes in my walls? That's why I called you. And he was like, I told him that if he wanted to be a cop and he wanted to go to the army, he couldn't get in any trouble, and you know, he couldn't get have all these run-ins with the cops and stuff. And he promised me that he was going to be good and there was not going to be any more issues, because he didn't want to mess his chances up of being a cop. And you know, this is his dream, and you know, he knows he can't do that if he gets into trouble. And I am legitly sitting there like, so we're not going to do anything? And he was like, he's promised me he's going to be good the rest of the night and we're not going to have any issues. And I was like, okay. Okay. So he leaves. And about 15 minutes after he leaves, he starts his crap again. He starts screaming. He hits me with a cowboy boot. So I call his aunt. Because why the hell am I going to call the cops? They're not freaking helping with shit. So I call his biological aunt. And I'm like, look, this and this and this is going on. I've already called the cops. He is getting even more violent. I need a timeout because I'm starting to get angry. Like he's physically abusing me. And she's like, okay. So she does really good and hauls butt over. Takes her about 5 minutes to get to my house. She's probably driving about 200. I'm sure. So she comes over and she goes back to his room and they're having screaming words back and forth. And he picks up a boot and he chucks it at her in her face. And she knocks him against the wall. She is like, I don't care about going to jail. You aren't going to put your hands on me ever again. And he comes at her again and she calls the cops. So the cops show up again and they're like, so here we are 2 times now. And you have physically harmed somebody. And he's like, she hit me into the wall. And he was like, good. I'm glad she did. Because if you hit me with this, you know, cowboy boots, I don't know if you're probably not from where you wear cowboy boots, but they're heavy and they hurt. And he was like, you aren't going to be putting your hands on people. You know, like, what are you doing? He's like, so he brings him out into the living room. Wyoming is a corporal punishment state. You know, I mean, we can spank and all this stuff. I don't know why they call it corporal punishment because it makes it sound so much worse. But so he brings him out to the living room where I'm sitting. And he was like, I decided that we needed to have this talk in front of your mom so that all parties are involved. And he was like, if you put your hands on anybody in this house, I am giving them permission to put you through the wall. Because you cannot be violent to everybody in this house. And I'm just over here like, no, please take him. Like, please take him with you. He's not going to stop. Well, he tells them, if I have to come back again, I am going to arrest you. And I'm going to take you to jail. I think that when the cops would talk to my stepson like that, I literally think in his head, he would be like, say bet. Because he knew that these people weren't ever doing shit about nothing. And I really think that my stepson was just literally sitting there like, say bet. What are you going to do? You're going to do nothing. Say bet. But we didn't have any more issues that night, nonetheless. But things continued to get bad. Like, he would become somebody that I didn't even know. Like in the other video that I had put on YouTube, he would sit there in the back room and he would literally like talk about how he was going to turn me into CPS and he was going to make up false allegations and I would get all of my kids taken away. And he would laugh because it would be so funny to him. I mean, he was just upping his game. Constantly just upping his game of like, what can I do to terrorize this family to no end? Now, the little girl, she was also upping her game. So, you know, she's still clawing her face. Then, in one day, the boy kicks out his bedroom window. And 15, 20 minutes later, the girl kicks out her window. You know, they're taking the glass and they're hiding it in their shoes and their drawers and stuff from breaking the windows, you know, and I'm literally having to, when they, let's just say when they broke the glass in their room, I'm having to take everything out of their room, completely clean it, shake everything out, dump all, you know, you don't have to usually worry about when your kids break something, them taking the glass and hiding it. I did. Any long nails they would have in their drawers, one of the times when the cops took the boy and they were like, they called this PTRF who would actually take him, and my husband though had to drive him, and he took a pin, took it apart, hid it in his shoe, because his plan was to stab his dad in the side of the neck on the way to PTRF. Except for the fact that I have a really big Suburban, and my husband was smart and was like, you're gonna sit in the way back and put your seatbelt on, and if I see you move and I gotta pull this car over, you're not gonna like it. Because he was acting violent before he ever even left the house, and they're making him drive this crazy kid to PTRF, which is 2 hours away from us, guys. The PTRF is 2 hours and the RTC is 4 hours away. We live in a small town. There's nothing here. So he takes a pin apart, puts it in there, and when they check him in, they're like, what's this in your shoe? Like, why do you have this? A pin taken apart in your shoe. And he's like, because when I got a chance, I was gonna stab my dad in the side of the neck. These kind of things were quite often. The little girl, she was constantly trying to attack everybody in the house. She would hit me constantly, punch me in the back, you know, and it's just like this went on so much and so often. It's like CPS and the cops were just like numb to everything. And I was getting to the point where I was numb to everything. It was like, oh, well, they think it's okay. Well, I guess it's okay because kids are supposed to abuse their parents, you know? And the kids, the last 3 years, 4 years that they were here, I think it was like 3 years, 4 years, 3.5 years. They stopped going on visits with Biomom, but at that point, it was too far gone. It was too far gone for anything to make any difference in anything, guys. Like, things were just bad. My camera was doing something really weird. I've got to figure out this whole camera thing. But CPS, at one point of them helping us, they legit wanted me to put them into regular school. So I put him into regular school, and actually the interesting part was the boy, when he, towards the end, he got really super violent, as I was telling you guys, and he ended up getting put into the group home. The group home decided to take him, which I think is really funny, because they wouldn't take him for years because he was so violent, and then all of a sudden they decided to take him. Well, he had manipulated the house mom, the manager, the head person of this group home. He had manipulated her so bad into believing he was so abused and all this bad stuff. Well, his mom, Biomom, worked for the group home, but the girls' group home. Isn't that interesting that people who have a bad record of raising their own kids and stuff, they tend to get into jobs where they're taking care of kids? It's like, you can't take care of your own, but you're going to go take care of somebody else's. Well, anyways, this Biomom was friends with this woman and started visiting him in the group home when he was there. And they decided while he was in the group home that he was going to go to regular school. Well, before, so he's going to this group home, and everybody thinks like, oh, he's doing so good, blah, blah, blah. He's on probation and stuff. So it's just like, CPS's way of helping was put him in school. You'll get a break from him during the day. But that break was never an actual break. You see, both kids started stealing money out of my purse. So I would go get some of my bills, take cash. And so I would go get cash out of the bank to go pay. It would be in my wallet. And they were stealing it out. And I could not find it, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. But they stole $1,000 out of my purse. And this might have to go to the next video, because this is all a story in itself. That next part of our life. But we'll talk about that in the next video because that's further down the line. Some of the things that I wanted to discuss in this video, and probably beginning of the next, is, so the boy is still pooping and peeing on the floor. He's still pooping in the water heater door. We have changed out the floor I don't know how many times. Bought one of those fancy toilets to put in his room. Maybe he can't make it to the toilet. Literally trying everything to make their life better. And as we try harder to make things better, they are trying harder to push away. You see, with reactive attachment disorder, they don't want to attach to anybody. And the more you push to attach, the more they go the opposite way. Well, we didn't know that at the time. You know, I used to stay up late at night and study stuff to figure out, like, what the hell do I do? You know, I'm living with these two kids that are jumping on my kids and tearing their face up every chance that they get. You can't leave anything out. Not chemicals, not food, not, the knives had to be locked up. Everything in my house had to be locked up because everything was a weapon. Everything was for the taking. My kids would keep their things in their room. Everything was not ever good. You know, everybody asked me, were there good moments, or are there good memories, or are there good years? With those two, no. No. You know, until I got out and could actually enjoy my kids, I felt like I didn't even know my own kids because I spent so much time dealing with these two. Every day, something went on. I mean, one time, I would give everybody a section of the yard and we would all rake the leaves up and stuff. And my stepson would always cause crap all the time. So, you guys hear of grounding your kids to their room, grounding kids from their friends. You know, you can't go with your friends or whatever. We grounded our stepkids to go play outside. They hated to play outside. In fact, they hated to play. Period. They didn't want to play. They wanted to cause hate and discontent. Did not want to play. Well, we were all outside and we were raking leaves. We do everything as a family. We're all out there. I gave all the kids a section of the yard to do. The girls got theirs done. The boy is still standing there. I'm not doing it. You can't make me. I'm like, look, you know, the deal was everybody does this and then we're going to have pizza and we're going to watch a movie. So if you don't do your part, you're not getting it. Well, you have to do it. You can't withhold it. And I'm like, the deal was everybody does their part and we're going to have, you know, pizza and watch a movie as a reward for doing our part. Well, he becomes violent with the rake. Starts swinging it at people, smacks one of my disabled child, actually, smacked her in the face, knocked her over backwards. So I called the cops. The cops come, and I happen to get one of the best sheriffs on the force. Actually, there was like 3 that I absolutely loved when they came because they didn't put up with his shit, and they would tell him, we can see through your bullshit. We can see through your bullshit. You may have everybody else fooled, but you do not have us fooled. Well, one of those cops showed up. And he comes and he asks what the problem is. And I told him, you know, he hit my daughter with the rake in the face, showed her my daughter's face. He's refusing to listen. You know, he's causing crap. This, you know, told him, everybody did it. Is, you know, we were all going to do a piece of the yard. Small sections, guys. They were real small sections. Because I had so many kids. Like, each going to do a section, then we were going to have some pizza and watch a movie, and he blew up or whatever. So I explained it to him. And that cop turns around and he looks at him and he's like, pick the rake up now. So he picks the rake up and he's like, now rake the yard. Your mom told you to rake the yard. You're going to freaking rake the yard. And I was over there like, okay. So he stood there the whole time that my stepson raked the yard. Then, when he got done, my stepson threw the rake down. He's like, no. Is that where that goes? And he's like, no. And he's like, pick it up and go put it where it goes. He's like, now you're going to go over and you're going to apologize to your sister and you're going to apologize to your mom. And then you're going to go get your pajamas on and do your bathroom stuff and your butt's going to go to bed. Do you understand me? And he's like, yes. And he's like, I'm done. We're not coming out here all night. I'm the one that's on. the night shift, and I'm not coming out here all night dealing with you, so I'm going to deal with you now. And he literally put my stepson to bed. And my stepson was like 13. I think he was 13 at the time, and I was just like, okay, I need this guy to like live at my house, because everybody has like really been concerned with the fact of my husband and him being part of the problem. And I've never denied that he wasn't part of the problem. So back when everything was going on with my stepkids being hidden and her mom writing and saying that they needed help and blah, 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 my husband had decided, so he had to deal with them. He had decided that he did not want anything to do with those kids anymore because things were so bad. He fought for them in hopes that I was right, that things would get better. But he ended up being right and I ended up being wrong, which doesn't happen very often, but it did happen, that he was right and I was wrong. I don't like the way that sounds, but it's whatever. He wanted to sign his rights off. In my mind, I was like, where are these kids going to go? Bio mom will not ever have her shit together to take care of her kids, let alone herself. She's still living with somebody else. Still not working. She can't even afford to get food. She can't afford to get tags in her car. She can't ever afford to do anything. How is she going to take care of these kids? Leaving stepdad would mean I had no custody, no rights over these kids. Therefore, if I kicked him out, he didn't want the kids would go with her. And then when she lost the kids because she couldn't take care of them and she would neglect and abuse them, they would end up coming back to him anyways, where he didn't want to do it either. So I always felt that I just had to stick around and I just had to deal with it. The last straw for me was her poisoning me was pretty big factor. Because as the counselor put to me, yes, Heather, you are strong. Yes, you can put up with a lot. Yes, you forgive very easily. But if you die, who's going to protect your kids? They will go to biological dad, but so will your stepkids. Then there's nobody there to protect them. And that weighed on me like a ton of bricks. That was like a reality check. We will get into the story of me being poisoned. All of the stuff that happened with that, her going to jail, all of that later on. That's towards the end of the story. There are a few things that are in between, but there is my story for the day. I hope you guys have a beautiful, blessed day, that you put more into the world than you take out, that you are nice in the comments, and that you think before you type something out. If you have not lived it, you cannot say what somebody should, could, or would do unless you live it. You can give advice only if you have lived it. Support is the number one thing that people who have dealt with abuse need. If you can't be supportive, watch the videos, but do not comment. Being ugly is a choice. And I'm not saying physically ugly, I mean your attitude. I won't tolerate it. I have this really strong tribe on here. Who would have guessed that I would have so much support and love? You guys have been absolutely amazing. But those amazing people will probably say something to you as well. So if you're looking for a fight, choose it on somebody else's channel that wants the comments and likes whatever they get out of it, because I don't care about negative comments. I have literally lived with 2 kids that have killed. I have lived through complete hell, and any boom that you think that you're going to bring is like tiny compared to what I've been through. It's just minute. It's not going to affect me like you think it's going to affect me. And it's not this stuff. This whole situation is done. There is no longer any way of any advice you could give me that can fix things now, because it does not exist. They're not in my home anymore. I would not be talking to you if they were still in my home, because I wouldn't have time. I wouldn't be able to sit in this nice, quiet bedroom. I have 3 kids out there, guys. That door behind me, there's 3 kids out there. They're doing school by themselves. Well, my youngest isn't. She's coloring, waiting for me to do school with her. But the other ones are doing school. It is peace. Goose fraba in my house now. There's nothing but love, appreciation, my admiration, because everybody knows that I love my kids and I am their #1 supporter. So anything that you think that you're going to bring or try to bring me down, I cannot hit rock bottom anymore, because I was already on rock bottom. Well, I'm sure there's more rock bottoms, but what I'm trying to say is I was at the lowest that I could possibly be at the time, and I'm on the way up. And your nasty comments can't push me back down this way, because I already lived through hell. Now I'm just living my best life. So I want everybody to have a great day. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye, guys.